Hi, I'm Nina Cooke, and thank you so much for joining me today for the Entrepreneurs in a Game podcast. Today, I've got a very special guest, Cara Chace. Cara started in social media marketing in 2011 by managing 13 million fans across 17 social media accounts for a worldwide band. Since then, she's gone on to create hashtag campaigns for cities and their tourism boards, websites for entertainers and small businesses, and online courses to help online entrepreneurs like you figure out this whole digital marketing puzzle for your business. Cara, welcome to the Entrepreneurs in a Game podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat today.
Excellent. So, Cara, tell me about how you started managing 13 million fans across 17 social media accounts.
I have a really unique story. And it's one of the things that really has led to a lot of these mindset shifts that we're going to talk about today. Before I started with the 13 million fans, I was actually a special agent for the government for 10 years. That was my first career. I was a criminal investigator, all of that. And I realized that working for the government was not what I wanted to do my whole life. It was probably the most uncreative, restrictive, everybody starts with, I think I want to do this. And then after several years, I realized that was just not a good fit for me and my goals and my personality. So I left that career in 2011 and had no idea what I was going to do, none. But I started volunteering for this band, and the band has been around for a very long time. It's the band Megadeth. They're like a 90s thrash metal genre. And I was volunteering on their Facebook page. At the time, they had like 6.5 million likes, and they had a small group of people that were volunteers to help keep their page just nice and clean and a good place for the fans. You know, the spam and the hate and all the nasty comments or whatever, we just constantly went in to try and keep things cool. So because I was unemployed, I basically didn't have anything better to do. And I was on there all the time. And I started realizing that they were totally missing the boat with social media, as happens a lot. Especially in an industry like the music industry that can be a little behind the times when it comes to marketing and kind of that kind of stuff. So I started learning everything that I could about social media and digital marketing. I was doing courses and developing contests and all sorts of stuff, totally self-taught. And I very quickly became the social media manager from a free volunteer to the social media manager for Megadeth and Dave Mustaine, all within the span of about a year, because that's how much I was learning and doing and putting out there. And I started their Instagram accounts way back when Instagram was just people taking selfies. You know, I started showing them how they could use it for marketing and user-generated content and for their fans. And by the time that I left, I was managing 13 million fans across 17 social media accounts. I got to interface with like Universal Music on their album launches and all sorts of stuff. So I literally went from knowing nothing about social media to this level of digital marketing yes, they're a band, but they're a brand, they're a business. In a very short amount of time, it was definitely the trial by fire, drinking from a fire hose, all of that kind of stuff.
Quite a learning curve.
Oh my gosh, yes. So, and I had a brand new baby at the time as well. So
impressive.
A lot of juggling. So I learned a ton from that. And it was totally one of those, okay, well, I guess this is my career now. I guess this is what I'm going to do. And I loved it because I got to be that bridge between the fans and the band. Which I think a lot of bands in the music industry are missing, that really cohesive bridge. And it was a really cool thing to do. So after that was done, I went to work for a social media agency here locally and very quickly realized it wasn't a good fit. It was much younger people that wanted to go to happy hour every night. I was not as young with a baby at home and wanted to go home. Very much that marketing agency type thing. And I was kind of like, I've already done my time as a special agent, doing all hours and weekends and on call and all that kind of stuff. That is not the life that I want to have anymore. And so I realized that the only option left for me was, well, I'm starting my own business. This is what I'm going to do. This is the only thing that feels right to me. So that's kind of the, I guess, short version, maybe long version of how I went from being a special agent to owning my own digital marketing business.
Whoa, that's very rapid rise. When you started marketing for the band, was there any part of you that felt, oh, I can't do this? Or did you just have the confidence just to go for it?
I've always been a very confident person. There have been times where I have felt overwhelmed, which is different to me, in like, how am I going to handle all of this? And how am I going to get up 100 pictures from this concert while I'm trying to take care of my baby and I haven't slept in 2 days and all, there were definitely moments of being overwhelmed, but there was never a point at which I felt like I don't know what I'm doing or I can't figure it out. And that is something for me that's always been innate. And I know that that's something that you want to talk about a little bit. But I have always had this very deep-seated belief in myself that I can do absolutely anything. I don't really know where it comes from. There wasn't like a particular memory or moment from my childhood or whatever it is, but I have always had this completely unbending belief in myself and my ability to learn and get things done and do whatever I set my mind to do. So
that's a wonderful
overwhelmed
to carry around.
Somebody asked me the other day if there's one thing you could impart to your children, and I'm like, that's it, that you can do anything. It might be overwhelming, it might be a little painful, it might be like sometimes you think I'm too exhausted, or is this the right fit, or whatever, but just that true belief in yourself that anything you decide this is what I want to do or be or have, that you can make it happen. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'd like to pick you up on the overwhelm. So there you are, you're juggling a baby, you're juggling work, you've got this huge responsibility. And when you felt overwhelmed, how did you deal with that?
At the time, I dealt with that by like stopping what I was like, slowing that momentum down, because I think when we get into that space of overwhelm, we start building this momentum of panic. And you kind of go down this spiral in your head of like, it's almost like a panic attack overwhelm. At least it is for me. So instead of trying to I'm not going to think that way anymore, I'm going to do the opposite thing, and trying to switch directions at 100 miles an hour, I slow down and I stop. That often looked like, I'm going to go for a walk. I am going to not do anything tonight, but read a book or just unplug for a little bit. As time has gone on, that process has kind of gotten fine-tuned, and I have a little more flexibility in my schedule now that my daughter is older and all of that. But what I found worked the best for me was just taking a break, however that looked for me, to just slow down that momentum of overwhelm.
And when we're in overwhelm, it's so easy just to be reactive. You're reacting to events. You're not actually thinking them through. You're definitely not in the moment. And when we're reacting, we're being very short-termist rather than looking at the medium long term.
Yep. And I would say, and even today with running a business and clients and whatever, I find myself, there are days where I'm just head down, like getting through my list kind of, and it doesn't, sometimes it feels overwhelming, sometimes it doesn't, but that mindset of just getting through your list and not picking your head up and looking at the big picture can lead to overwhelm if you keep doing it day in and day out. It does for me. So now I build in time in my schedule to make sure that I get some big picture time every day. Some people like to call that working on your business instead of in your business. And for other, I've gone back and forth with, is this, I take an entire day to work on my business, or do I take 20 minutes in the morning to journal a little bit and just kind of, ground myself for the day, for lack of a better term. But I definitely find my overwhelm now comes from when I have too much time day in and day out where I am just in worker bee mode, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So taking time out to look at the big picture, to actually work on your business, as you said, is very grounding, and it helps you just, again, think about what you really want rather than just crossing things off your list, which it can become very repetitive, and it can be very draining and exhausting.
Yes. And the other part of that is not just working on my business, but I actually take the time to sit and think about or write, how do I want to feel today? How do I want to feel in my business? And one of the things that comes up often when I write out, like, what are my important things for today, is I'll write out ease in all my tasks, like feeling good about what I'm doing, feeling like it's easy, feeling like this is something I really enjoy doing. So it goes beyond just, okay, big picture of my business, but how do I want to feel when I'm working on my business today?
That's a really important part of it, isn't it? That's the bit we tend to forget.
Yes, because you're just focused on getting it done.
Yes, I think that's really lovely. And do you have a particular way that you plan your day, or is every day different?
Every day is a little different. And I love productivity. I love figuring out different things to do. So there have been many iterations of how I do things over the years. But currently, right now, my schedule fits around my life. I run my business because I know that I want to live my life in a certain way and have certain priorities. And that's very important to me. So right now, my daughter is home with me on Fridays. So I work kind of half a day Sunday through Thursday. That's my work week, and it's not negotiable. So on Sunday, I print out my Google Calendar for the week. I look at what I have pending, and I will take an hour on Sunday and plan out my whole week and look at what I have on my to-do list, basically appointments, client work, my stuff, whatever. And then I actually do, what works for me is I do theme days. So I tried time blocking, which most people are familiar with, where it's like from 9 to 10 on Mondays, I'm doing this. And from 12 to 1 on, whatever, I'm doing this. I found that to be way too restrictive for me. And what happens is when I have something that's too restrictive and I don't meet it or do it, it starts the cycle of I'm failing. This, like, I'm not doing this right, so I might as well just give up now. I kind of tend to have a very all or nothing personality. So that's something I've really had to build into the structure. So my theme days are more like Mondays I work on marketing. Tuesdays I work on client work. Wednesdays I work on my website and content, that kind of stuff. So it gives me enough structure to where I can look at a day and be like, okay, this is my client work day. These are the things I have to do for clients this week, instead of time blocking by hours and all of that, which life happens. And I don't have the mindset to roll with the punches when I have that like extreme structure. So that's what I find works for me.
I like that. That makes absolute sense, because you get your head around doing one particular thing for the day rather than chopping and changing. And that can be very, very disorientating sometimes.
And distracting.
And very distracting, and needs a lot of planning.
Yeah.
Said that whatever you set out to do, you can figure out a way of doing it. So you say yes to something, and this is very much how I work as well. I'll say yes, and I'll think, okay, I'll figure out how to do it. There has to be a way of doing it.
Right.
So for our listeners who think, actually, if I can't do something, I'll just say no to the opportunity, or I won't even think about it. It's too much out of my comfort zone. What would you say to them?
That's like a foreign language to me. I would say you never know. You just never know what opportunities are going to lead to, wow, I'm really good at this, or I really like doing this. And I'll give you an example. My very first client, when I decided to leave the social media agency, My very first client was a project that was backed by the drummer for Iron Maiden, which is a very cool first client to have. And when I was talking to them about the project and what they needed, they said, do you build websites? I had never built a website before. I had no idea, but I said, yes, I do. And I taught myself how to build websites on Squarespace. And since then, I have built many, many websites, including my own, obviously. And Squarespace is one of the two core services that I offer now. That has become something that I absolutely love doing because it's the way that I get to be the most creative in my business. So I had no idea that I would enjoy it that much. And so what I would say is you never know. I'm a big believer in feeling out and running down opportunities and not shortchanging yourself and closing doors before they need to be closed.
I completely agree. And you said that when you have this belief, this deep-seated belief that you can do anything and everything you want. Mm-hmm. When something hasn't worked for you, when there's been a setback, mm-hmm. how do you get past that?
Yeah. Again, a lot of the tools for me that work for me are about slowing down and kind of stopping. I'm a very self-reflective person, and I have learned in the last 5-6 years how important self-care is for me. Mostly because of realizing that I'm actually an introvert, and that is how I regain my energy and my momentum, is by taking that step back and having time to myself. So I would say when something doesn't work out, it used to be, because I'm a natural people pleaser, it used to be I would get wrapped up in what did I do wrong? Why, all of the negative self-talk and all of that. And since I've started my business and since I worked for the band, I'm much more, I don't really know how to put it. I'm much better at taking that step back and that 10,000 foot view and saying, okay, well, what's really going on here? Is this just something that's not a good fit for me? Or is this something that it doesn't really work well with my energy levels or my personality, or this is just not a great client fit, whatever it is. It again comes back to that, just taking a step back and taking a beat and giving myself some time to reflect on it and not take things so personally. That's been
not taking things personally. That is such a huge thing, isn't it? Because when we take things personally, we can beat ourselves up, and it really goes to the core of who we are.
It's so hard. And that has definitely been a struggle for me. A lot of my life is not taking things personally and realizing a lot of things have nothing to do with me.
And I've found for myself, when I stopped taking things personally, that I've become much braver. And I think, okay, that's an opportunity. And if it doesn't work, that's okay, because it doesn't affect me and who I am. And also, if I speak to a prospect and they decide not to work with me, they just say no to the service. It's not right for them at that point, but it doesn't mean anything about me. And that's just been such a huge change, a big shift in my mindset. And everything becomes much more exciting because the fear goes, doesn't it?
It does. And you get back to this feeling of ease. And I know everybody has like a word or a whatever, but for me, what I constantly come back to when I think about my business and my life and my priorities is wanting to, as much as possible, maintain this feeling of ease. And when you have a client or a prospect or whatever that you're trying to make fit and it doesn't feel quite right, and the red flags are going off, but you still want the business and, the jumble that goes on in our brains. It's so helpful to come back to that. Like, if this doesn't feel like this is the way it's supposed to be, then we need to take a look at what's going on here.
Yes, and not to blame ourselves or beat ourselves up or call ourselves a failure or any of those things. Right. You said you used to be a people pleaser. Does that mean you're not one now?
I would say I'm semi-reformed. And a lot of that has actually come in just the last few years with being an entrepreneur. And I think most of us, when we start businesses, have this, you fall into you'll take any client, right? You just want to get your business off the ground. You'll take any client. You'll do anything that you feel like you can reasonably do successfully and manage. And that leads to clients that are not great, projects that are not great, all of this kind of stuff. And I would get, I'd say the first year or year and a half, at least in my business, I fell into this. I really don't like this client. This doesn't feel good. This is not what I want to be doing, but I'm feeling like I need to get the gold star, right? Get that like 100% on the test, gold star, all of that mindset. And I would say I'm so much more aware of that now, and realizing what a problem that was for me actually led me to niching down in my business. That is what led to, I do digital marketing in general, to I do Pinterest and Squarespace, was realizing and being in touch with what do I really like doing? Who are my best clients and what am I doing for them? What gives me that feeling of ease with the work that I am doing and the results that my clients are seeing. So I would say I, excuse me, still have those tendencies, but I'm much more aware of when I'm doing them now and can course correct much quicker.
And awareness is key, isn't it, when you're trying to change your pattern of thinking?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
What's the number one tip you can share with our listeners about how to wade through the social media puzzle?
Through the social media puzzle, let's see. Well, know where your audience is. I, had so many clients when I first started, when I would, be talking with them about what they needed and what they were doing, that felt like they needed to be everywhere. I need to be on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and all this kind of stuff. And it's exhausting and it's not feasible to do well unless you are a corporation or a huge company that has a whole team of social media people. So knowing where your clients are and where they are engaging with you in the best way is really the number one tip. Don't be afraid to just have one or two social media profiles that you really curate and are present on and interact with your audience on.
So go deep with one or two platforms rather than spreading yourself too thinly across the board.
Absolutely. Yep.
Great. And how can our listeners find out more about you and your work?
Yeah. So my website, carachace.com, and it's CaraChace. It's a little bit of a unique spelling. So carachace.com has all the things that I do, and all of my online profiles are at Cara Chace. So you can find me anywhere.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. It's been an absolute joy having you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you everyone who's been listening in and watching, and see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.